Guys, a U.S. congressman has accused the Nigerian government of corruption. Take a look at this headline. It says, United States lawmaker Rai Moore has accused the federal government of Nigeria of failing to justify the billions of dollars in military assistance it has received from Washington, alleging continued buying of Christians in the country. They are saying they've given Nigeria a lot, but nothing to show for it. This is coming after Mike Hammond said that the Tinubu's government stands being dismantled should the government refuses to listen to Trump's instruction. Trump's instruction is clear. It says, end the terrorist guys or America will do it for you. Now take a look at this headline. It says, our intervention may require dismantling Tinubu's government if it fails to act against Christian genocide. This is coming from Mike Hammond. This is one of the persons, spearheading the end of this Islamic menace in Nigeria. And he's saying that if Tinubu's government fails, then his government might be dismantled. Don't forget that Washington has also given this update. Like you can see here, it says, the Pentagon's heavy plan proposes deploying an aircraft carrier and bombers for deep strikes in northern Nigeria against Islamic militants. Just for you to know that US is not playing. So guys, now let's bring it home. The Tinubu's government is being accused of corruption. Like this headline here says, Tinubu government undermines transparency, enables embezzlement by failing to renew 41,000 Naira SSL certificate. So the transparency portal has been disabled. I mean, you cannot check the excesses of this government in terms of their expenditures because they refuse to renew the certificate of the website. How much does it cost? $29. That is 41,000 Naira equivalent. So this is a portal where you go to check corruption of the Nigerian government. Now, that website is not working under the Tinubu's government. It has been disabled because they refuse to activate the certificate. Now, Nigerians cannot access it to check the excesses of this government. So guys, let me show you how Nigerians are reacting after the congressman from the US accused Nigeria of collecting so much with little to show for. Now, this person here said, security votes and financial military assistance are the reason why they look away when there is insurgence so that they can keep collecting the money. Now, bubble don't bust. Now, this other person here said, the Nigerian government has become the biggest terrorist organization, looting billions in foreign aid meant for security, while innocent citizens are butchered daily. They steal in the name of defense, kill in the name of peace, and lie in the name of governance. Pure evil wrapped in agbada. And this other person here say, billions received, yet insecurity persists. Time for full accountability, federal government. And this person here said, this accusation isn't surprising at all. It perfectly reflects the government's long-standing pattern of irresponsibility and misappropriation of funds. Year after year, billions meant to protect Nigerians from terrorism and insecurity vanish without trace, yet nothing changes. It's shameful that the money meant to save lives keep ending up in private pockets while innocent citizens continue to die daily. The real war in Nigeria isn't terrorism, it's against corruption. And this person here said the United States should stop giving military aid to Nigerian government because it will end up in the hands of terrorists. The White House should know that the terrorists have hijacked the government in Nigeria. My God. And this person now finally said, the U.S. lawmaker accusing the entire federal government, but our own lawmaker, the Senate president said, who am I to reply Trump? Now for Nigerian body, they forget power. So guys, these are some of the reactions from Nigeria. So guys, a whole lot is happening. Now I'm going to allow you to take a look at this video just for you to have like a backup of what I've just told you guys. Just take a look.
The Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians. The USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria. We're going to do things to Nigeria that Nigeria is not going to be happy about and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns are blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible, horrible atrocities. I'm hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians. These are cherished people. These are great people. Leave them alone. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast before it's too late. If they don't, there's going to be hell to pay.
With unity and purpose guided by renewed hope agenda to build a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient Nigeria.
President Tinubu and before him President Trump. Well, to wrap all these developments into tidy little compartments, I'm joined now on the line from Washington, D.C. by Arise correspondent Anieze Osakwe. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So a new posting on Truth Social from President Trump, still banging the drums of war and warning of other immediate punitive consequences. How much has that threat raised the, if you like, the threat level for Nigeria, because Mr. Trump is emphatic that he's instructed the Department of War to take further action. And in fact, overnight, the New York Times reported that the US military have started drawing up some plans for some sort of action in Nigeria.
Absolutely. It's good to be with you, Charles. And I think that if there was a word to just sum up everything that you've said in your intro and the video that we saw from President Trump and this new reporting from the New York Times, the word is urgency. I mean, President Trump putting out this video essentially, in the early hours, Nigeria time. It was short. It was short and sweet, as he says, but he was essentially reiterating the comments that we'd heard from him in that initial Truth Social post that he did on Saturday. And what's interesting is that he almost repeated what he said in that Truth Social post verbatim. Talking about guns ablazing, the fact that Nigeria will have hell to pay, the fact that he's designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern. These are all things that he had essentially already said, but the fact that we're seeing it in a video in what looked like some sort of pre-recorded video comments made potentially at the White House, that just upped the ante. The sense of urgency can't be overstated here. And then, like you said, just, overnight, the New York Times put out this new report about the fact that as soon as President Trump made that post directing the Department of War to draw up plans, they did. And, Pete Hegseth essentially told AFRICOM, which is, the U.S. military's operation force that deals with the entire continent of Africa, to draw up plans. And that's what they did. So they broke it down in 3 levels, light, medium, and heavy. And the light version included what the military called partner-enabled operations. And that would basically mean the U.S. military would support the Nigerian government and government officials deal with Boko Haram and Islamic terrorists. The medium option involved using drones, drones that could strike bases, convoys, vehicles, all in northern Nigeria. So essentially something from the sky. And then the heavy option actually involved moving an aircraft carrier into the Gulf of Guinea and deploying actual fighters and long-range missiles to attack these Islamic terrorists. So it's really clear that the U.S. at this point is upping the ante, and something I've been reiterating for the last couple of days is just how quickly everything has moved. Trump made these comments on Saturday. By Sunday, he made those comments on Air Force One, saying that they were essentially potentially going to put in airstrikes, put boots on the ground. Here we are on Thursday, and we have this video, so there's really no telling how much further this story will go.
Now, barely 1 week after President Donald Trump directed the U.S. military to prepare for possible action over claims of Christian genocide, the U.S. military has submitted contingency plans for potential strikes on Nigeria. The New York Times reports that the U.S. Africa Command has drawn up and sent its options to the Department of War this week upon the request of Secretary Pete Hegseth. Arise News Chief of Correspondence Ferdinand Duroha reports has more.
The military intervention plan is drawn up by the U.S. Africa Command, also known as AFRICOM, a military unit Donald Trump had earlier threatened to dismantle as part of a Pentagon downsizing effort. It includes 3 options: heavy, medium, and light. The New York Times quotes the heavy option presented by the command as the most forceful military response that the U.S. could take against Nigeria. It involves sending an aircraft carrier group to the Gulf of Guinea, off the Nigerian coast, and using fighter jets or long-range bombers to strike targets deep inside northern Nigeria. For the medium option, the command suggests using drone strikes against identified military camps, bases, convoys, and vehicles. The New York Times says the light option would center on partner-enabled operations with the U.S. military and the State Department supporting Nigerian government forces to target and neutralize terrorists responsible for attacks on civilians. Although AFRICOM says the goal is to strike Islamist militants in northern Nigeria and protect Christians from armed violence, critics are skeptical about the objectives and implementation. While the plans were designed to allow for a controlled escalation, the asymmetrical nature of Nigeria's conflicts presents a major challenge as terrorist elements often live within citizens, making it difficult for the military to fully engage. The situation is also more complicated due to the issue of proximity. Presently, The United States does not have an airbase in any neighboring country to Nigeria after exiting its bases in Agadez and Niamey, both in Niger Republic. This reduces their options to bases in Southern Europe and Djibouti. Ferdinand Duroha, Arise News.
In other news, Chief of Air Staff Air Marshal Sunday Aneke has assured Nigerians that the Nigerian Air Force will prioritize the safety of civilians and prevent collateral damage during its ongoing operations to root out terrorists. Aneke gave the assurance on Thursday during his maiden meeting with branch chiefs, Air Force air officers commanding and other senior officers at the NAF headquarters in Abuja. He says the directive aligns with the federal government's expectations for the military, adding that the Air Force will focus on operational efficiency, safety and professionalism. Aneke says the strategic meeting was convened to assess the force's current posture, identify gaps and review measures to enhance effectiveness.
Let me take this moment to assure Nigerians that the Nigerian Air Force will continue to work closely with sister services and other security agencies to root out terrorism, eliminate threats, and deny safe havens to all adversaries of our nation. Our joint efforts will remain relentless until peace and stability are restored in every corner of this great country. We will further strengthen civil-military relations by engaging communities, winning hearts and minds, and building trust. Our operations will be people-focused and respectful of the very citizens we are sworn to protect. Gentlemen, we have to take this as our priority. Protecting civilian lives and preventing collateral damage will remain a defining hallmark of our professionalism and operational discipline.
All right, very important statement there, Vimbai. Remember that in the last, under the last Air Force chief, there had been reports around bombings or bombs killing civilians in certain parts during some of their operations. So it's great to hear his assurance. But beyond that, first of all, it's a day of congratulations. Congratulations on your award received yesterday, TV Personality, TV Presenter of the Year. Congratulations, Vimbai. And of course, still celebrating Dr. Abati, who turned 60
there are implications.
today. There are implications. But absolutely.
First, the big implications, the 60-year implications. Once we get those out of the way, then we can come with our own small implications.
All right, well, there are implications of insecurity. As we see, we have been talking about it all through the week, and the story is not going anywhere as at yet. Yesterday, the president had his FEC meeting for the first time in 3 months, as Adesu Omoran reported, just as we saw a few minutes ago. Your take on all these stories this morning?
All right, I'll quickly begin with some of the economic takeaways from the FEC, because the other security issues, I think, belong in one group together. So, biggest takeaway from the FEC meeting is that the federal government is set to unveil what they're calling the next phase of their reforms, which is supposed to create a greater environment for investment. Some of this includes addressing some tariffs, deterrence to imports, fiscal transparency, and so forth, which I think are all commendable. But I think we can all agree that we've gotten to a stage where we kind of exhausted. We've got reform fatigue with macroeconomic reform, and now we want to see microeconomic reform. So a lot of us were anticipating hearing something about an industrial policy coming out of that FEC meeting, because what we really need right now is an increase in household incomes, number one, and a greater access to opportunities. Jobs is what people are looking forward to in the next phase of reforms. So that was a slight anticlimax for people like myself who are looking for something a little bit more tangible that will add money into our pockets. Now let's look at the bigger story today. The big story is, of course, we've heard from the president for the first time making his comments with regards to all that has been going on with threats from Donald Trump and so forth. And he made another commitment yet again to squash out terrorists and terrorism and insecurity in Nigeria. And of course, we know this is not the first time. I went all the way back to November of 2022 during the campaigns when he said that one of the key things on his agenda would be to squash out insecurity. And he said this, I quote him directly, "We shall continue the fight against insecurity by redefining our counterinsurgency doctrine and practice. Our response to terror, kidnapping, and violent criminality will be defined by the following elements: He said we shall enlist more people in the armed forces, security services and the police. Our forces will be given better tactical communications, mobility, as well as improved aerial and ground surveillance capacity. Through these and other measures, we shall better identify, monitor, track and defeat these evil groups where they are. They shall have no respite until they surrender or are utterly defeated. November 2022. Have we seen an increase in the armed forces, security services and the police? Not yet. To give credit to this administration, we've seen the introduction of forest guards and so forth, but that campaign promise is yet to be fulfilled. Better tactical communications, mobility and so forth. I think we can argue that the DSS has been playing a stronger role in providing intelligence. We're seeing a lot more action based off of intelligence. But beyond that, are we seeing any greater tactical, strategic surveillance and movement from our armed forces? Not yet. So we hope that, given that we're currently engaged in a diplomatic imbroglio with the United States, that the political will now exist to make these changes that need to be made so that there can be some sort of headway made in this fight against insecurity. Now let's look at the news coming from the New York Times that the Africa Command has already weighed up their option. First of all, I think that this should be taken with a pinch of salt. We know that Donald Trump is currently involved in litigation against the New York Times. He calls it the virtual mouthpiece for the radical left Democrat Party. He calls them fake news. He calls them Donald Trump does not have a good relationship with the New York Times. So how likely is it that a representative of Donald Trump's government would have gone to the New York Times? Well, maybe it's an information leak. But I think we also need to be careful about the politics that is also being played in the United States and how Nigeria's issue can be used as bait in trying to get one over between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. Very, very important for us to take it with a pinch of salt. Having said that, when you look at those options available, and now I connect it with the NAF strike and that commitment to say that there will be more accuracy with airstrikes. If the United States or any country whatsoever is to choose the route of airstrikes in Nigeria, I've spoken about this before and I reiterate that bombs don't discriminate, especially with the strategy that we currently see of asymmetric warfare. Why do I say this? These extremist groups like to engage in human shielding. What is human shielding? In Latin, they call it moena ex captivis, which means hiding behind captives. They hide behind civilians. They hide behind the vulnerable. We saw it in Gaza. We've seen it in medieval times during the Crusade Wars. Even the Romans and the Greeks used it as a strategy. So when we talk of airstrikes, it's a very dangerous strategy because these extremists have decided to hide behind vulnerable people. So this is why people like me denounce any international airstrike coming in as a solution. We've tried the non-kinetic approach. Unfortunately, we haven't had any success with it, but I think that we still need to revisit ways to solve this non-kinetically, even though it's looking like the kinetic approach is going to be critical in squashing out terrorism once and for all.
Once and for all, let's squash it out. Let's end the killings. Rufai, your take on these stories?
A couple of things. At first, I'd like to acknowledge what President Tinubu said, that we need to squash and fight insecurity. I think since this debate started, I think this is a valid point for President Tinubu, that we need to fight insecurity. But I don't want him just to end at a point of rhetoric. I want him to match it with action. By now, there should be a battle plan drawn up by the Nigerian government as regards what will action be, a renewed action. Because you see, when the Americans wanted us to invade Niger after the coup happened, Nigeria's battle plan was leaked by a certain journalist. We had a quick battle plan of what we wanted to do in Niger before that was stopped and people kicked against it because it would have brought monumental damage back to Nigeria owing to the cultural symbiosis between Nigeria and Niger. So by now, we should have a battle plan based on intelligence of what we want to do. We should also have a battle plan based on tracking terrorism financing, because these people cannot work without finance. And in tracking terrorism financing, apart from the work the NFRU will do, we should also see how we can infiltrate financial cells across the Sahel. Because see, those that help change money and give money to these criminals, you can find them in many parts of the African continent. Anywhere you have a land route, you can see them carry money with their camels and other materials, as well as arms. How do I know this? I know of somebody that has gotten on an African expedition before, and he told me that all he needed to do was to tell a money agent from Nigeria that he'll be passing through some African countries. And when he went through those African countries, the money agents will always send people that will come and give him local currency in that country. All he needed to do was to give. So there's an informal money financial chain across the African continent, apart from even the banking sector. The NFI will track transactions through the banks, but there's an informal money chain that we should also infiltrate and see how these terrorists are being financed. Thirdly, I'm happy that the Chief of Air Staff has said they will prioritize protection of citizens when they do that, their airstrikes, because that's also important. We had the case of Iran where a lot of people were killed in airstrikes. And we've also had people killed from airstrikes recently. Because we want to strike terrorists does not mean we should also kill our citizens. I accept that argument. As regards America, with due respect, I do not think because Trump is not in good terms with the New York Times, we should discountenance what New York Times said. Because there are people in American government that talk to every form of media in New York Times. Trump is also not in good terms with the CBSs of this world. But he goes there to hold interviews, despite the fact that he gloats on those platforms how he made them pay millions of dollars in a court case. So institutions like New York Times and other American media talk to everybody. You might not be in good terms with the government, does not mean that you will not have insiders that also talk to you. Most of the job we do in the media is a symbiotic relationship between the media and government officials, even with governments that you don't necessarily will agree with. What did New York Times say based on their reporting? They said there were 3 thresholds. Number 1, a light attack. A light attack would be a symbiotic relationship between Nigeria and the American forces, which would be most likely the case, and which we have pretty much been doing in terms of training and reconnaissance information sharing. The 2 other ones, medium and heavy, will not work. What is on medium? Probably set up a base around here or use a long-range drones. America has something called a Reaper that can stay in the air for a while. Use those drones, hover around. But those things have known not to be effective because the best you would just do is you would do targeted airstrikes. But after airstrikes, you need a ground troop force that can come and do a clearance operation after airstrikes. So that's not going to work. And if America or Trump thinks they can come and do that and to show that they've performed airstrike just like they are doing in Venezuela, it's a joke. By the way, based on what is happening in Venezuela as we speak, even the Congress is beginning to sanction Trump and say he has to go through them before he orders another airstrike. The third one, which is the heavy approach, is what they're saying that they will probably lodge aircraft carriers in the Gulf of Guinea, fly out of the Gulf of Guinea, come into our territorial waters. All of that will not also work. The best bet will be the light approach, which the Nigerian government has also said that if they want to give us some support, they can give. For me, even if we are doing the light approach, is an indictment on Nigeria. It just shows that leadership has not worked. I feel with the strength of this our military that fought over 6 different rebel groups between Sierra Leone and Liberia, we should be able to get the work done effectively. It's just that leadership is missing to a large extent. I wish Nigeria well, and I hope we're able to surmount insecurity and stop the killing.
Yes. We hope that we are able to surmount the insecurity and stop the killings. I would dare say that take or discountenance President Trump's threat at your own peril. Yes, we might say that, oh, he speaks a lot and he's known to yo-yo on his policies. But if you look at his antecedents and going by that New York Post report that a military action, a draft action plan is in the works, then you would know that when Trump speaks, especially speaking about going into another country, most likely he has made up his mind, he's concluded, and he's just giving notice. It's only a matter of time. I had the opportunity to also just get a feel from from military. And the truth is that there's an expectation of that happening. However, how does Nigeria then manage this? And when I talk about this, I talk about Iran. By the time he had said it, by the next day, it was in Iran with military intervention. You look at what is going on with South America, the war against, the fight against, military action against drugs. He's gone ahead and he's done it. With Gaza, the war in Gaza, Israel's intervention, he spoke and he went ahead and he did it. So it's very likely and almost certain that as he has spoken with regards to military action in Nigeria, it will happen. What we're calling for is a consolidation of efforts between the U.S. military and the Nigerian government. Now, the advantage of the military, of the U.S. military, is number one, they have the capacity. Well, first of all, they know where the people are. They know where they're hiding. They already have identified their targets, and they have the capacity to go on. What has been argued again and again as to the reason why Nigeria perhaps has not been able to contain terrorism despite successive governments increasing the budgets on security and putting, making all the efforts and saying the right rhetorics around defeating terrorism is the fact that there's a lack of capacity and in some instances a lack of political will. In fact, to the credit of the Tinubu administration, it is that in the past administration we had a leader who almost didn't care about what was going on, almost didn't do anything with regards to pushing back on terrorism. We saw terrorism almost take on a life of its own during the last administration. With this administration, the Tinubu government has tried, like Vimba, you already identified that during his campaign speech, he had talked about pushing back on terrorism. He had spoken very heavily on security, and in many instances, we saw some progress being made in that area. However, it wasn't anywhere near enough. And that is why, instead of closing the doors and not opening the channels of communication, let Nigeria see how we can work with the American government to ensure that we do not buy into this false narrative of them coming to as a coy to change a government or to bomb Nigeria or to declare a war on Nigeria, but a war on the terrorists who have been causing havoc on Nigerians, especially, as the American government has said, on Christians. Now, let me even open this conversation around Christian genocide, because a number of people have been speaking for, against, it is just an incident of terrorism, insecurity in the country, Nigerians are being killed. And they're absolutely correct. However, when you look at the terrorist groups and their foundation, many of them have been touted as Islamic terrorist groups. And when they attack, usually their targets are Christians or moderate Muslims. You can look at their trajectory, you can look at their history. And so for people who do not agree with their faith, that is one of the first things that they do. And that's why you can understand why a number of Christians in the Northeast, in the North, and in Middle Belt have complained.
There's so many moving pieces when it comes to this particular issue. Earlier today, we discussed the fact that the United States are saying that they've already provided millions and almost billions of dollars already supporting Nigeria's fight against insecurity. We've looked at the aspect of our own efforts and how well the government is saying that the numbers of insecurity incidents have improved over the past decade. Then there's also the question of narrative, where the government maintains that there's no religious targeted persecution taking place. But we know the evidence shows, sustained over a period of time, that there is religious targeting in a lot of the insecurity that we see. What's your take on all of these moving pieces?
Well, what I actually want the government to do, the government at both ends, is to approach this matter with sincerity of purpose and with candor. From the Nigerian end, the narrative has been that there is no religious persecution, no religious group is targeted. That is not entirely true. It is also true that the government is not directly responsible for any act of violence against Nigerian people. That has to be very clearly established. That the insecurity in the country is caused mainly by the activities of non-state actors that the government is opposed to, and that the government has tried to find a way to combat in the past 15 years. These are the facts. I wish that the government sticks to the facts so that the Americans can see us as serious-minded, sincere, so we can work together to tackle this problem. I have seen how government officials in the past couple of days and weeks have labored to explain the fact, to explain that Targets, violence in Nigeria is not targeted against any particular group. It's just random. It kills everybody and all that. Let me put things in context. There are various groups attacking people in Nigeria and killing people, causing violence. Some of them are simply criminal terrorists, economic terrorists, who are killing everybody, kidnapping everybody to gain economic advantage. Those in Zamfara, Sokoto, and the rest who are trying to cordon off where we have gold and other minerals, creating insecurity to be able to have access to these things, they belong to this category. They don't have respect for anybody, they kill anybody along the line. But there are also groups that are targeting Christians. We must admit that. If we don't admit that, it will show insensitivity to Christians. It also shows lack of seriousness to tackle the problem. I mean, the attacks against people in Benue, in Plateau, Southern Kaduna, a whole lot of them are targeted against Christians. They kidnap priests, they kill them, they attack churches, burn them down, kill people. They choose religious holidays, Easter, Christmas, and attack. And, there is no way anybody can try to explain that away. The story is told, for instance, of the Abdullah Abubakar, I think is his name, in Plateau, the imam who shielded Christians in 2022, that the late President Buhari gave a national award. These were Christians that were attacked. Before the man shielded Christians, they had killed over 100. And the man was able to shield them, gave them protection, which was why he was praised. But if we are to reverse the trend, if the man were not an imam, if he were a pastor, he would have been killed. He would have just been among the casualties. And there are so many, many other instances of that, Christians are targeted. Sometimes even when they kidnap people randomly and take them to the bush, they try to get them to convert to, Islam. Some of them who are Muslims, they are given fair treatment. Some of them are even released. Those ones that refuse to, convert, they are either killed. I mean, Shaibu and all the other ones are, Leah Shaibu, and we know the story is, in the public domain. So we must admit the fact that Christians are targeted by some groups. Okay. There are also some groups who also kill people indiscriminately across the country. Like when we move to the southeast, for instance, the threat against the ordinary man in the southeast is not the same as the threat against a policeman in the southeast. There is particular target against security officials in the southeast. It is true that they are killing everybody, but it's also true that they are also targeting security men and women in the southeast. If we don't admit that, we will also not be able to address the problem in the southeast correctly. Is this honesty and candor I wish the government adopts so that we can find a solution to this problem and then address it. Okay. Then from the American end, if it is to protect lives of Nigerians, including those of Christians, is the real desire. Military attack against maybe some targets, maybe in Sambisa Forest, someplace in Borno and Yobe, will not be the solution. That would maybe degrade them to some extent. But we know the nature of terrorism. You have to be patient to be able to combat terrorism. You have to work with those who know the terrain. The Americans alone cannot do so. The plan to come and just attack some places where you have terrorists and all that will also not be the solution to the problem. So a synergy between Nigerian government and other foreign agencies, that countries that want to assist, including the US, will be the way to go. Denial on the part of Nigeria is not the right approach. Okay. Random attack on the part of the US against some terrorist camps and just ending it there will also not be the solution. So there has to be a way for the two sides to work together so solution can be found to this problem.
Thanks, Prof. You said it all. It's just so shocking that those that started pushing the government propaganda are the same people that advocated for Leah Shaibu. And we know that Leah Shaibu, her only offense when she was taken away and kidnapped was that she was asked to change her religion, and she denied that plea from those people, or she denied that pressure, and she said she was going to stand with her religion, and that's only her offense. So is it shocking that those that advocated for Leah Shaibu then all of a sudden now have what we call selective amnesia and are the ones pushing the position of the government today as regards this issue? May God forgive us all. And may God let us realize that this our earthly race, heaven is priority. The next question I would like to ask you is, we sort of are in a catch-22 situation. the Americans have, explored 3 different angles they want to come in from. The limited approach, which I say, okay, probably will be the way forward. A coordinated attempt, to have the Americans work with the Nigerians. And that the other 2 approach, the medium and the heavy, will not work. Putting an aircraft carrier in the Gulf of Guinea and trying to send fighter jets in here and trying to send, missiles in here, it's not going to work. Even, the mild approach with drones hovering around, it's not going to work. Because even if you clear out hideouts, you still have to do a reconnaissance job. If you bomb somewhere, it's not that everybody there is going to die. There'll still be some bandits that are running around to regroup. So you need to flush them and you need to do the intelligence work. But also in doing that, let's talk about the complicity. We've had many past leaders in the past that have said there's a complicity in the security architecture of this country. That there's been compromise. And there have been people that lean and have sympathy towards these criminal elements. How can we solve that problem?
To my mind, that is the biggest of all the problems. By far, the most important issue to resolve. You recall that in 2014, in the aftermath of the kidnapping of the Chibok girls, there were actually efforts from the United States to try to assist Nigeria to rescue them. But when the plans were put in place, the Americans discovered that Boko Haram had what they were planning to do. They said there were reports that they were wearing gas masks and all that, and that would have made the operation ineffective. When you have an enemy within, it becomes a huge problem. Well, I do not know how the government hopes to do that, because we have gallant military men who are committed. Sadly, some of them have died because of the complicity of some of their colleagues who gave information to Boko Haram and some other groups. There were times that you had successive ambushing of the Nigerian military, which was clearly, arising from the information given by, some of their colleagues to Boko Haram. It is one of the biggest problems, apart from maybe inadequate weapons and the rest of them. It's one of the biggest problems, because when you have an enemy within, then the capacity to achieve your objective becomes greatly limited. What I think government should do is, within the military rank, there should be a way, to identify these people. Maybe not all of them. And the ones they identify, they should treat them as their action as prisoners and send them to military tribunal and probably execute them, if possible, to serve as a deterrent to those who have in mind doing such a thing moving forward. As we speak, just a couple of weeks ago, we had some military guys arrested for selling arms, supplying arms to terrorists. I mean, such people should not be treated with kid gloves. They should face military tribunal, and possibly they should treat them like coup plotters. Execute them. Let us see some action on the part of the government within the military itself. Then, when people see that, that will act as a deterrent. And then we'll have less and less of that. Then we'll begin to have some success. Added to this,
you can see that the US is not playing when it comes to their plans to end insecurity in Nigeria. Many Nigerians have been reacting. Now, let me take you through just some of the reactions from some of these tweets that we've just taken. Now, like the US coming out to accuse the Tinubu's government of, trying to cover up for AIDS corruption. Now, this person say Nigerian government has become the biggest terrorist organization, looting billions in foreign aid meant for security, while innocent citizens are butchered daily. They steal in the name of defense, kill in the name of peace, and lie in the name of governance. Pure evil wrapped in agbada. And this other person here say, they say America wants to help Nigeria, but somehow every time they help, we end up poorer, divided, and more dependent. And this person say over $7.8 billion in aid later, but Christians and Muslims are still dying, and resources kept flowing out. Maybe it's not aid anymore. Maybe it's a strategy. Let's talk about what's really behind US and Nigeria partnership. That's what this person is saying. Another person here say the billions for Islamic Boko Haram intels in military. And this other person here said, it's really sad, This other person here said, so you guys were giving federal government billions of dollars and our government didn't tell us. Make una come bomb all of us so we go rest. I beg. They shouldn't bomb everybody, I beg. This person said, except the American government has loss of memory. During a briefing with Dutch, it was revealed that billions were released to U.S. aid marked as military aid to Nigeria, but was sent to Boko Haram, which means America has tactically funded the crisis in Nigeria for a very long time. And that's what Donald Trump wants to stop. A U.S. lawmaker accusing the entire federal government, but our own lawmakers, the Senate president, said, who am I to reply? Trump. Can you imagine? Now for Nigeria body, they get power. For Nigeria body, they get power. This person said the United States should stop giving military aid to Nigerian government because it will end up in the hands of terrorists. The White House should know that terrorists have hijacked the government in Nigeria. And this other person here said, this accusation isn't surprising at all. It perfectly reflects the government's long-standing pattern of irresponsibility and misappropriation of funds. Year after year, billions meant to protect Nigerians from terrorism and insecurity vanishes without trace. Yet, nothing changes. It's shameful that money meant to save lives keep ending up in private pockets while innocent citizens continue to die daily. The real war in Nigeria isn't against terrorism, it's against corruption. This is it. And this person said billions received, yet insecurity persists. Time for full accountability, federal government. This other person said, you guys talk too much. You guys talk too much. By now, we should be hearing scores of terrorists you've eliminated. If you want to act, then act and drop talking. Stop talking. This person is very funny. Very funny. What billion? Does he mean the billions that was funneled to US aid, or which one? Nigeria is not Egypt, Kenya, or South Africa that were constantly giving billions in military aid and equipment. The American foreign policies have never favored us militarily. This person says, how much has America given to Nigeria as grant and loan in past 5 years? Give me genuine figure. Oh my God. So guys, a whole lot of reactions. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you.